And that is so hard when we have social media, which is like, I work in this industry and I know that it's just breaking our brains and it's making us all feel like we are inadequate and that we don't have the things that we should. But you need to put it down and you need to go sit in the flowers and touch some grass and know that you need to find the things that make you happy and find your dream that is personally yours, and your career that is personally something that makes you happy, because that is what makes those like 11 o'clock nights bearable when you want to like pull out your hair and throw your laptop in the ocean. At the end of the day, you wake up and you're like, okay, but I still love my job.
Well, welcome, Dixie Roberts.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
So, what first sparked your interest in digital strategy and brand storytelling, and how did that path lead you to your current role as EVP of Integrated Creative Strategy at Hangar 4?
Absolutely. It's definitely been a winding path.
Okay.
I think I don't think any marketer's path, especially in like the social and digital space, is a straight line, and I kind of love that. I always say when I interview folks that I love that you can look at people's resumes and they aren't. They're never a straight line, and they always are a little bit interesting. And mine is the same.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I really fell in love with social and digital when I worked at Warby Parker. Back when it truly was a startup, I was employee number 77, which sounds weird to know, but I swear, if you ever have the opportunity to work at a startup and you are one of the first employees, you weirdly will know that. So I started when it was very, very small, kind of working on their retail team, but also just kind of doing everything. I remember, sitting in a warehouse, counting glasses for inventory, sitting next to the co-CEOs. But I kind of moved into some of the kind of creative copywriting and social media work. And this was a long time ago. Feels like not a long time ago, but it was quite a while ago now, back in like mid 2000s, when brands were really still like experimenting with how do we reach our consumers on social media? What are we doing with social media? What is it for?
Mm-hmm.
And Warby Parker really made a concerted effort to say social media is for us to build a community, individuals that will hopefully buy our product. We're not selling to you necessarily. We're not saying, hi, we're here on social media to hashtag buy our glasses. We are here to tell you cool stories about people who we think align with our brand. We're here to kind of introduce you to cool musicians that we feel like are building a lifestyle around Warby Parker. And I truly thought that was so brilliant. I was so inspired by our entire creative team that I had the privilege of working with. And I was obviously a lowly, 27, 28-year-old, learning from these incredible folks who, I mean, we were all like in our, mid-20s, early 30s, because that's what you are when you work at a startup. But just really inspired by what you could do with social media and being on the front lines of a brand who kind of paved the way for what social media could be when it came to, in my personal opinion, using organic social correctly. And that is to build a community of individuals who see a brand as a person and not as a brand, and therefore are like, I want that person to be my friend because they seem cool, and oh, they
Mm-hmm.
sell something, I want to buy that. And
Right.
so, yeah, and so that was really what made me fall in love with the words. I was a copywriter, so the words that we say and how we use them on social media. I was doing a lot of long form content, everything from blog content on Warby's blog, interviewing musicians, writers, and also doing some of the more kind of executive content for Neil and Dave. And after a while, I was there for like 3 years, and I literally went to my creative director and I was like, I feel like I've written everything I can about glasses. And I don't really know what to do next. And that was kind of when she told me about agencies and what they were. I truly had no idea what that entire world was, and it really opened my eyes to this whole space and the possibilities that were there. So it was a fun journey, but it really made me fall in love with the space from an organic perspective, which is why I still am such a believer in organic social media. I think in a time where so many people are trying to write the headline that organic social is dead.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And it must be that organic social is much more authentic
Yes.
than paid, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think, listen, I always tell my clients and my colleagues that paid and organic are never either or, it's
Hmm.
always and.
Mm.
And they
Okay.
definitely,
So use
yeah, they
both.
definitely serve, yeah, always both.
Right.
And they serve different purposes. And you should ideally almost never be using the same content that you're using for organic social that you're using for paid social. Now, influencer content is a different story, and we can talk about that later. But I will say, if you have a piece of content that is feeling super sales forward, like you have a Labor Day sale coming up, I don't necessarily feel like that belongs in your grid on
Okay.
Instagram. Like
Okay.
if people see that, they're just gonna be like, "Ugh," and keep scrolling. However, if you have a piece of content that wants to talk about, how you are decorating your dorm for back to school,
Hmm.
that's something that feels like it belongs in the grid because it's something that helps educate your consumers. It's something they can engage with. You could maybe ask them a question, what are some things that are dorm must-haves for you this back to school season? Um, and then you're able to fit in your product, whether that be a lamp, whether that be a couch, whether it be a shelf. And you also are able to create something of a lifestyle while you're doing that and not being like, buy this shelf for
Yes.
your
Right.
dorm.
Right.
It doesn't feel like you're telling them to do something. It feels like you're educating them and you're bringing them along for the ride. So that to
Hmm.
me is like the kind of hard line between organic and paid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, and I'd love to continue to focus on your journey here because I understand before you went into copywriting, you also were an opera singer. So in New York City. So please tell me about your profession as an opera singer, your journey in New York City, and how you changed to working in copywriting.
Yeah, I know. This is I always say it's my forever fun fact. And I always thankfully get to avoid the company talent shows. Say the only person I sing for now is my son. But yes, and I was a professional opera singer. I went to school for music. I have my undergrad and my master's, both in music. And I think a lot of people, when they first hear that, they're like, "Oh, it's unfortunate that you're not using your degree. I bet that really kind of bothers you." And so, I thought a lot about that. I thought when I decided to leave the profession, and a
Mhm.
lot of my friends who have decided to leave the profession, because let me tell you, it is a hard profession.
Mm.
Um,
Is
that
it
is kind of,
competitive
yeah, it's
and
very
physically
competitive.
demanding, I would imagine?
Yeah, it's very competitive. It's very physically demanding. You kind of have to like live the life of a monk, because obviously, your life is your voice. Your career is your voice. For me, it was the travel that finally just kind of got me. I
Okay.
I moved to New York City, and my first 2 years in the city, really, there's only one or two professional houses in the city that kind of pay at the time when I was there that paid a living wage, that I could really kind of audition at and make the money that I need outside of the Metropolitan Opera, which I do not necessarily consider a local house because they hire singers from all over the world, and that is a very competitive house. So the good thing is about New York is all the companies from all over the world come and audition in New York. So you don't have to fly to New York, but if you get a job, you leave a lot. And
Mm,
so
okay.
I had, 2 great audition seasons and I was gone all the time. And I was away from my then boyfriend. I was away from our apartment. And I was like, I moved to New York to never be here. And it was just really exhausting. It was exhausting living out of a suitcase. It was hard, like making friends and then never, saying goodbye to them after, usually your rehearsal periods are like, 4 to 5 weeks. And so you're spending a lot of time with these people. And what happens with opera singers, and also a lot of performers, is that you have 4 to 5 weeks here, and then you have like maybe like a 2 month break, and then you've got another 4 to 5 weeks, and then like a month, 2 months, 3 month break, and so we oftentimes would have side hustles, other
Okay.
gigs. A lot of our friends would wait tables,
Hmm.
and that was grueling. And so a lot of folks would get to like the end of a contract and they'd be like, oh, I gotta go back to my my restaurant job. And I was like, I am determined to not hate my side hustle. And I had also studied journalism. I had a passion for journalism in high school. I was on the high school newspaper. And I'd always loved copywriting. I'd always loved writing. And so I decided to kind of like give it a go as
Hmm.
like an amateur copywriter and take some gigs, like see if I could throw my hat in the ring for just some like part-time gigs.
Right.
Yeah, just like submitted some work, some blind submissions, and I started getting work.
That's so
Um,
cool. I love that.
and yeah, and it was so easy at the time to just like, just kind of get these freelance gigs for copywriting I mean, we all know there's a million websites out there and they all need copy.
Right.
I have written copy for some very strange things, but they all need copy. And so that's really how I got into copywriting.
Okay.
Um, and and that really kind of then brought me obviously then to Warby Parker, and then I moved into my agency job. And I will truly say, I there is nothing that you need more when you become a marketer than to, especially when you're interviewing, is to be able to market yourself.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I found myself to be extremely like adept at that because that's what I had to do as a singer. I literally was walking into audition rooms every day having to be like, "Hi, I'm Dixie Roberts. Like, please hire me. Here is my like 3 arias." Thankfully, I didn't have to do arias when I walked into interviews or I walked into a boardroom, but I did have to, if I was presenting new business or presenting a campaign. And so that really has become such a strong suit for me as kind of being someone who can, very strongly present strategy, present campaigns, present new business. I've kind of become like somewhat of a new business lead at my agency, and I love it. And I without obviously having or going through a communications degree, I truly don't think that any communications degree could have possibly given me what my theater degree and my career in opera gave me in terms of the confidence and the poise and the ability to stand in front of thousands of people and confidently say whatever I needed to say to sell those tickets.
Right. So
Yeah.
what are arias?
Oh, great question. Arias are songs.
Okay.
Yeah, so in opera, they're called arias. And when you walk into an audition room, you usually have the opportunity to sing. You start with an aria of your choice,
Hmm.
and then you usually bring like 2 or 3 other songs, and then the folks sitting behind the table usually have the opportunity to pick one of those other arias to hear. And so you usually get to sing 1 or 2 arias, and then it's in their hands whether you get the gig or not.
I love that you're talking about how theater really prepared you for presenting in front of people, for selling yourself, but also ideas, whatever products or services that the organization is selling. Um, and so you've led some incredibly impactful campaigns. And You've led them from gaming influencers to social causes. What personal values or passion guides would you say have been helpful to guide you throughout that process?
Yeah, great question. I think, you know, I will say working in an agency, no 2 days are the same, and you have a myriad of clients. Um, you will always have clients, there will always be clients that you love more than others. Obviously, you will never tell your clients that. Every client is your favorite client to that client. I will say it is so important to me to always have a client that has some kind of like social impact or like an organization, a .org, uh, because in a world that is so, um, we are a capitalist country. It's our job to sell things, and at the end of the day, if I am trying to sell lipstick, I also want to be doing something good.
Okay.
Um, so I think for me that is something very like personally important to me, and it helps fuel my work every day. It helps me feel like I can like get up and sit at my computer every day and feel great about the work that I'm doing. Um, I will also say that a lot of our clients have kind of started moving into kind of more social causes and social spaces with like their ERGs or their DE&I initiatives.
Hmm.
And that was something that our client Indeed um, was looking to us to build for them for Pride a few years back. Came to us and were looking for a campaign around Pride, and really kind of this was like not long after, it was like a year or two after the pandemic,
Okay.
and which feels like yesterday but really wasn't. um, and this was like when people were starting to finally kind of go back to the office, and I think people didn't realize how weird it was that we were all like floating heads on a Zoom screen for like 2 years, 3 years, and we like literally hadn't met some of these people ever. And all of a sudden, you meet these people for the first time and you're like, wow, you're tall. I have no idea who you are. What kind of things do you like? Who are you? Are you what kind of person are you? What kind of things do you do for fun?
Hmm.
Uh, and it made for a lot of awkward interactions. And of course, this was around Pride, and so this was a lot about empathy and talking about finding ways to show up as your true self at work. And so we came up with the idea. We found this very niche study that had been done that basically, like the simple act of sharing a music playlist with someone can help you get to know that person. And that music tells, basically, like that music can tell you more about someone than they can even tell you, because it's kind of like a psyche thing. They're gravitating towards music that tells the story that they might not be able or feel comfortable telling. So the artists that they choose, the music that they choose, the songs they choose tell a really kind of unique story that paints a picture of who they really are. And so we created this campaign called the Soundtrack of Empathy, and it was truly the most fulfilling thing I've done in my career, and it was so like personally and soulfully fulfilling. And I think it was why it was so successful. We also got to work with international pop star Mika, who myself and my executive creative director are personally massive fans of, and who, thank goodness, they say never meet your heroes, but Mika was an incredible, genuine human being who not just because we loved him, but because he also is known for singing songs about his life and about like kind of like who he became through music. And it really did truly kind of become this like 360 campaign that we were able to create. We produced an entire concert and live streamed it on YouTube, and then we raised money for Lady Gaga's organization, Born This Way Foundation, and it was connected to Total Streams on that concert. So it really kind of like ticked all the boxes of all of the things that mean a lot to so many of us,
Hmm.
but definitely to me personally and like a lot of my personal values. And that was a big moment, I think, for me personally. And then, I mean, a side bonus of it all is that we then won a lot of awards for that campaign.
Fun. Speaking of meaningful campaigns, you did a TikTok campaign for a nonprofit addressing child abuse. And I understand that was very powerful and vulnerable. So, how did you balance creative freedom with the sensitivity of that particular subject?
You are speaking of Barbara Sinatra Children's Center, which also is known worldwide as fightchildabuse.org. And to your point, yes, it was so important for us to get the conversation and the briefs for these influencers right, and also the partners, because we were working with people who had been abused. And we wanted these people to um, earnestly and safely uh, talk about their experience, but also find a way to say, like, there is help and there are ways that you can also make sure that this doesn't happen to you. And there is an organization that can educate you on the ways to stay safe, um, helping them monitor their direct messages, and having a professional from Barbara Sinatra Children's Center kind of like on hand in case anyone direct messaged them and said, like, I am being abused, like, what do I do? We've worked with so many fantastic partners. We've worked with Lance Bass. We worked with Simone Biles. We worked with Allie Reisman when she launched her book. Like, these are people who, I mean, are well known for talking about their histories with abuse, and to be connected with them and to know that they are using their platform to tell these stories. But as we kind of continue to build content and build campaigns for them, we're always learning. We're always learning how to navigate these very, very different waters. Whether we're doing paid content and we're having to monitor the comments on the content, whether we're doing influencer content and we're having to monitor the DMs, like it truly is very unique.
And do you feel like bringing in these big names to increase awareness around child abuse, has it opened up the gates to invite more people in? Do you feel like there has been an impact?
Yeah, I do. I think, you know, we have really seen a lot of traction in especially like in the educator space. Like we've seen a lot of schools proactively coming to Barbara Sinatra Children's Center and fightchildabuse.org, asking for their resources, which is like one of the biggest things that they do. They create these videos that are broken out by different ages and different grades, that can be shown in the classroom, they can be shown at home, and we have seen kind of upticks in video views, which has been great. We kind of work to promote certain videos, and we're able to track the amount of video views on that content, and we see upticks when we do these campaigns. And then also, like I said, like the increase in interest for educators kind of coming to them proactively and wanting to use their programming, which is so important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Get those services out. So, you currently lead a team of 8. So, what have you learned about empowering creative professionals while still achieving strategic business goals?
Yeah, I will say managing remotely has been one of the biggest challenges of my career.
Okay.
Um, Definitely something that I have had to kind of retool a few times for myself and be like, okay, wait, I need to try a different tactic. I need to try something different. Um, just the way that I communicate with my team, I think having those moments where I'm able to meet with them face to face, like Zoom calls. I try to have touch bases with my more senior leaders at least once every other week. And then I try to have touch bases with my more junior team members, the most junior to like the mid level, at least once a month. Because I mean, for those of us who have like risen through the ranks, I think we don't think of ourselves as like, sitting on this like, executive vice president pedestal of sorts. But to these folks who are, 22, 23 years old, I think it does seem somewhat intimidating to talk to us, to come to us. And that's hard for me to comprehend because I would like to think of myself as a somewhat extremely approachable human.
Hmm.
Um, but I want to foster a sense of like I am extremely approachable. Like let's have a meeting once a month. Let's talk. Like tell me what you need. How are things going? What are you like? What are your challenges? What are you working on? What do you love? What do you hate? Um, because I think for in terms of like achieving our team's goals, I think the most important thing is helping them achieve their personal goals because if they're achieving their personal goals in their career, we are achieving our team goals and our kind of strategic business goals to me.
Hmm.
Um, and so I want to make sure that when we get to things like their reviews, that anything that I'm saying to them or that their managers are saying to them who I manage isn't a surprise. Anything that they hear, they should have ultimately heard already in a touch base. And I also try to get to New York as often as I can. I try to get to New York at least a couple times a quarter, and I literally like try to like block off my calendar on at least one day when I'm there for just like office hours. And I sit in a conference room, or I tell my team proactively, "Hey guys, I'm going to be in the city. Let's grab coffee. Let's chat. Let's take time." Because that FaceTime is actual FaceTime, and it's way
Hmm.
better than Zoom FaceTime. So I I think there it is difficult, and there's always that balance of especially when you as an executive have all the information. How is the business doing? How are we doing financially? How are we achieving our goals? The business coming in, the business going out, like what does that mean for us? What do we see coming down the pike? How is new business? Is the pipeline good? Is it drying up? How much are we sharing, with our team? And how much are we sharing by level? Are we sharing that with our senior leaders and telling them, let's just keep this at the senior level? Are we sharing it with everyone? Um, how transparent are we? And how transparent are we being to make them feel that we are being transparent as a company without absolutely freaking them out for no apparent reason whatsoever? There's no reason to panic. Um, and I think it's important to always find that balance because there's absolutely no reason to share every blessed detail. I sometimes don't even want to know every blessed detail. I am not a numbers person. I will be honest. I always joke I have two right brains. I am a creative. um, I was never meant to sit with an Excel sheet and numbers. And so it's gotten to the point where like I've spoken with my ECD and like unless it's absolutely necessary, I don't look at yeah, like the budgets and the projections and all of that. Like I'm happy to like give some numbers if they need them, but that's just not for me. And
Okay.
that's okay.
Yeah.
And I have access to them. I know they're there. But sometimes they stress me out because I sometimes am like I don't always know what I'm looking at. Um, I social media numbers, those like come easily to me, but when it comes to like dollars and cents, I sometimes just like get in the weeds of like, you know, one particular column, or I'm like, oh my gosh, like what is happening here? And there's no reason for me to stress about that
Hmm.
because that's not something that I necessarily can do anything about where I'm at. So I think it's so important to think about if I give this person this information, can they personally, at their level, do something actionable about it? And if they can't, they don't need to know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, what's the motive behind telling this person? So, and I think that's a great check-in as far as disclosing information or not.
Yeah.
So, what role has mindset played in your evolution as a creative leader? And what kind of support and mentorship are you currently receiving to continue up-leveling in your career?
Oh, such a good question. I feel like you get to a certain level in your career,
Mm-hmm.
where, I mean, every time you level up, um, I always say like the training wheels continue to come off, and the protector kind of step away. And so I feel supported. I feel like I have support from my ECD, and my executive director. I feel like they always have my back. And I feel like I can always go to them and say, "What do you think of this?" But I feel like you get to a certain point where you go from not necessarily like, "What do I do?" to "What do you think of this?" And I think that's a really important transition, because you need to, whether it's right or wrong, you need to get to a point where you trust your decisions, and that is about mindset, like how you think of yourself um, and your talents and your abilities. It's about hopefully getting over any kind of imposter syndrome, which is always hard, especially for women. And I hope that we're all actively practicing, getting over that and telling ourselves that we know what we're doing. Um, and that there are people in likely higher positions than we are that don't. um, and just trust ourselves, and that's what it's about. Like, you have to trust yourself. It's not always going to be 100% right, but you just have to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when it comes to making that next level up, knowing that you have a team that supports you, knowing that you have people to go to say, "What do you think of this?" Or, "Can you read this for me?" I feel like I feel like I was in the angry place when I wrote it. I have someone who I can do that with. Um, but at the end of the day, saying, "I think this is the right decision," or, "I don't think this is the right decision. Let's try this." And that, regardless, that's the decision. Is it the right decision? I don't know. But it's the decision because it's your decision and you're the senior leader. So I think that's when you get to a level like mine, that's when you belong at that level.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think that's important. I I will say that being an executive and being in an agency, that there are so many things that we say and that we have to do every day that we don't always know the answer. We are coming up with answers, or we're tap dancing around certain things. We're circling back because we don't always know the answer. But you truly just have to be in a space and believe. I mean, it sounds cheesy, but like, you gotta believe in yourself. It really is, like, truly about being in that right frame of mind to say, "I gotta look confident." And I gotta say it so they believe me. If that
Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah.
I think believing in yourself and having that power is very
Yeah.
important. And whether it's navigating decisions at work at a high level, or navigating from being an opera singer into going into copywriting, into leaving that profession entirely and going to work for an eyeglass company. Um, Clearly you've had something guiding you. So how do you, through your decisions, and it sounds like you've navigated towards things that you really enjoy and are passionate about. And with the topic of the podcast being empowering creatives to live their dreams, what do you really lean into, whether it's a decision at work or a decision at home or a decision of what career step you next take?
Yeah. I was so drawn to your podcast because I love that message. I think life is too short and you spend so much time in your job. You should have a job. Like, your life should not be your job, but you should have a job that you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you should do something that you're passionate about. And I think that when you get to a point when you're doing anything in your life, I mean, not like cleaning the toilet, but like when you're doing most things in your life, if you get to a point where it's like not something that you enjoy and it's not something that you're passionate about, really take a second and be like, should I be doing this? Or is there something else I could do? And that's where I got to with singing. I was like, I like singing, but part of singing is the traveling. I hate the traveling, and it is wearing on my soul, and it's wearing on my quality of life, and I don't think this is sustainable for me. Um, and it was the same thing when we moved from New York. We always said like living in New York is a love-hate relationship, and you have to keep those two things in balance. And when the teeter-totter balances, it comes in balance and it becomes, less less love and more hate, like it's time to reassess.
Hmm.
And so like being somewhere that you love that inspires you, like God, I love Colorado. Like it's hard to be sad when you look out your window and there's beautiful mountains. Um, and I think I took my time getting married. I like just to like take a hard left. Like I took my time getting married. Like all of my friends were married mostly, I would say, before I was. I got married in like my mid 30s. I got pregnant and had a child like I was 38 when I had my son. And I did that because I just wasn't ready. And it wasn't like something that I wanted in my life at that time. And I had other passions that I wanted to pursue first. And so I think the most important thing I could tell to anyone is that you just can't look at other people's dreams and say, that's the dream I want. I think you just have to say, I have the things that I love, and I'm going to keep pursuing them because they're making me happy, and look inside instead of outside. And that is so hard when we have social media, which is like, I work in this industry and I know that it's just breaking our brains and it's making us all feel like we are inadequate and that we don't have the things that we should. But you need to put it down and you need to go sit in the flowers and touch some grass and know that you need to find the things that make you happy and find your dream that is personally yours, and your career that is personally something that makes you happy, because that is what makes those like 11 o'clock nights bearable when you want to like pull out your hair and throw your laptop in the ocean. At the end of the day you wake up and you're like, okay, but I still love my job. Which my husband will never understand, by the way. He's like, how I like that sounds awful. Like I can't. He's like, I'll have a day and I'll vent to him. He's like, I can't believe like how are you doing that? I'm like, that was a dumb day, but I still love my job.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that you are telling people to go find their unique dream, their unique happiness. And that's one thing that I really encourage is that define success for yourself. And it's true, you touched on it. There's so many external pressures of what we should do and when and what it should look like. And if that doesn't sit well with us, then having the courage to honor that is really going to allow us to live our greatest version of our life.
Absolutely.
And so you moved from New York City, which it sounds like you really enjoyed for a while, and then you realized, okay, we're done. And you moved to Denver, Colorado. So now you're running a team that's in New York remotely.
I am.
So how has that experience been for you?
It's been tricky, I won't lie. I like to try to honor, speaking of honoring, your space and the things that are important to you. I do try to honor my time and my time zone, quite literally. So for the most part, I try to tell my team, I'm online at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. I'm happy to like check in on Slack before that, but I like to spend my mornings with my husband and my son, and take him to daycare and have breakfast with him, and then I wrap my day at the good news is being on Eastern time, things get quiet around 4 p.m. Mountain time, and then I try to wrap my day around like 5:30 Mountain, and then I spend my evenings with my son and my husband, and then sometimes I have to hop back online if there's something due. I also just am like a night owl, so I like to write at night. So if I need like to do some writing, I'll do so. But in terms of the team, I think it really is about finding the best times that work for them in terms of like when can we talk that really feels like kind of the sweet spot for both of us to meet and really talk about, how are things going for you for our touch bases.
Hmm.
And also like our internals to really kind of check in on our clients. How are things going? Sometimes that gets tricky. Client calls, I'd be lying if I said I don't have a few 7 o'clock, 7 a.m. meetings on my calendar, because I do. But, that comes with the territory and that's okay. Uh, but I do think for the most part, the good news is that our New York office has some fantastic leaders across the team there, and that we truly are an integrated agency. We're a small boutique agency, and there's literally no walls, but also there really isn't a lot of walls in between the work that we do because we really do our best work when we are an integrated team, and we try to integrate our work as much as possible.
Hmm.
So, our account team is almost always involved in the work that like our social team is doing and our influencer team is doing. So, they might not have my leadership in the New York office, but they have, my senior director of influencer in the office, and they have my EVP of who leads our account team in the office, and obviously my ECD is in the office. So we have some incredible leadership in New York who they have as amazing, obviously, role models. And I have conversations with them quite frequently, just checking in. So I think it really is about having people you trust in person and then balancing that with making sure that you have a touch point and know that you're checking in with your team. At times it makes sense for both of you, um, and knowing that they feel like you feel connected.
Hmm.
Because if you don't make that effort, it's really easy to feel disconnected. I'm also like a Slack junkie. I am like always on Slack, and I'm always like communicating with my team, and I try to like use it to like its fullest extent in terms of like the things we can do on there. We use Slack huddles, so I try to like always just be on there and be present so people see me, and I don't kind of like disappear into uh, the the invisible walls since I am here in Denver.
Okay. And you've touched on the work life balance a bit with spending time with your family before and after work, maybe jumping on later. And I understand that you are very much a right brain, but that your son he's a STEM kid, right? So he's really
Yes.
into that math and technology and engineering and so forth. So, how has that experience been raising someone who thinks differently, and how has that really enriched your life?
It's been so fun. I will say I feel like I have learned so many things for the first time. So my son is only 4.
Hmm.
He'll be 5 in October, but that is to say, I will say that he's literally talking about dinosaurs and space at like maybe like a first, second grade level. He we don't listen to like Space for Kids podcast. We listen to like the NASA podcast. We're watching, Sir David Attenborough documentaries. And it I love it. I would much rather watch that, and I love watching them with him. And so it's really been a treat because it's when we watch TV, it's not like, turning on like cartoons that I'm just like, sitting and scrolling on my phone because I'm not interested in watching. I put my phone down because I want to watch them with him.
Hmm.
Um, I will say, thankfully, my husband is very left-brained, and so whenever he started my son Jack has started asking. Sometimes he'll be like, Mommy, did you know that 2 plus 2 is 4? And I'm like, I did. And he's like, what's 25 plus 176? And I'm like, you're going to need to ask your dad. So
Here come
my
the
husband,
numbers again.
exactly. I was like, you're going to need to ask your dad. And my husband is a software developer. Very, very, like, that is his space. So I'm grateful that he has that. But I also have had so much fun. I have kind of fallen in love with dinosaurs. I actually I have a half sleeve of dinosaurs on my arm
Oh, wow, that's
that
so
I'm working
cool.
on. That it's kind of like my little tribute to this time that we've had together. It's really been super special. We went to Dinosaur National Monument this past summer, which I truly cannot recommend to your listeners more. It is the most like underrated national monument that exists. It's so amazing, and if you have a kiddo who loves dinosaurs, they will love it. Uh, it really has like been so special, and our house is basically Jurassic Park because we have 1,000 dinosaurs here.
Wow.
So
So
yeah,
fun.
it's been fun.
Aw, that's great. And what would you say has been the biggest challenge in striking that work-life balance so far for you, especially
Yeah.
as a mom?
Yeah, gosh, what a great question. I'm so bad at work-life balance. I go in and out of being good and bad at this.
And how would you
I,
define that, good and bad?
yeah, um, I will say there was a time where I would only keep my laptop. My office is in the basement. There was a time where I would say, my laptop stays downstairs, and when I go upstairs, no laptop. If I need to do anything, I'll do it on my phone. That has since ended, and my laptop has started definitely creeping upstairs again. Um, there have been times where I would say like I'm, closing the laptop at 5:30 and like done for the night and not working again in the evening. That definitely, there's been times where I'm working like every night from you know, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., which is like not great because that's the time I get to spend with my husband.
Hmm.
Um, and so I really do have to have seconds where I check myself. Sometimes my husband has to help me check myself. Um, and I have to continually find little tools to help me kind of say, hey, it's time to check out. Um, we've recently found like an app that kind of helps us like turn off our social, both my husband and me, like turn off our social apps, turn off any app on your phone throughout the day, and you can schedule times. And so I have started doing that, and it's been really helpful. You can literally like choose the times. And it's called Bloom, if anyone's interested. And it comes with like, it looks like a credit card that you can either use to turn those things back on if you like can't handle it, or you can use it to like brick your phone if you're just like you want to like be done and put your phone away. But I find it's great because I will just instinctively, we all do, just pick up your phone when you're bored, and I
Hmm.
will pick it up and see that all those apps are grayed out, and I'll say, oh, you know what? I don't need to be looking at my work email. I don't need to be looking at Slack. I don't need to be looking at Instagram right now. And that has been such a great like unlock for me in terms of like finding the balance and also just like curing some of my social media addiction that has just kind of been born out of being in this industry, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners can relate to. I think it just all comes with the territory when we work in this industry.
Hmm. Yeah.
So we're all working on it. I know I am.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all works in progress with work-life balance and managing and navigating this whole digital world with disconnecting essentially and
Yes.
being present for ourselves
Yep.
and our families. So I hear you. Anything else you'd like to tell our audience today?
I will say there's no linear path. Um, there's no deadlines for dreams. I will also say that one of the things that made me kind of turn my career path around when it came to opera was when I turned 30, I kind of like took a look at my bank account literally on my 30th birthday, and I was like, wow, like I don't have like savings. I don't have like a 401k, like all of these things that you like are supposed to have. Now, are you supposed to have those? Again, it's nice. And yes, you should have a safety net. But it really was like a big wake up call for me. And I was like, okay, I need to take a sharp right to like smart, like I need to find a space where I can have some savings, where I can start like a 401k, where I can have insurance. And that was kind of where I started with Warby Parker, and we told the rest of the story. So it's amazing the things and the moments, and the realizations that you have in your life, that drive you to what's next. I will definitely say intuition is everything. I think that's so important. So don't ignore that. Uh, and yeah, that it's never too late. Truly, I totally switched careers at 30.
To hear more inspiring stories, to empower yourself and go for your dreams, be sure to check out this video because you can do it. I believe in you.